What did you learn about your defense in fall camp?
I thought we improved a lot, just fundamentally, more than anything. Getting guys to play hard. I think we're getting better at that day to day, and just understanding why effort's so important. I mean, the foundation defense, getting off blocks, tackling, playing with great effort, and so kind of going back from spring all the way through the summer. It's a tough evaluation on how well we'll tackle week one. Just we hadn't the opportunities that we have had to tackle. We have tackled well. We've tried to hit it in endo. We just week one we'll see where it's at from that standpoint. And but I think from what we seen in a small sample size scrimmage wise, we did tackle well and ran the ball pretty hard. So those things are definitely positives. And I think some of the transfers coming in here have helped from a leadership standpoint too, and I think that's really helped our culture, and not ones that are maybe the obvious ones to you guys as well. Guys like Charles Woods and Chris Megason, Ahmad might be more silent leaders, but so I think as far as gelling and getting the guys to be on the same page, we definitely have moved in the right direction.
How much of tackling is just experience?
Well, I think one of the things is you to make plays in space, you have to be athletic. Okay, so we can do every tackling drill known to man. At the end of the day, if the 4.8 guy's trying to tackle the 4.4 guy in space, it's tough, right? So, but there is a foundation of tackling that from last season that we went back to this spring. As you guys, if you were here, saw, we did it over the summer with them. So just teaching them how to be getting their head behind and, near leg compression tackles, which is, the large majority tackles you're going to make in modern day football. And so, but yes, I do think when you've done it a lot, obviously you've got experience to it. But even like when Jonathan McGill got here, he said, Coach, one of my biggest things that I got to get better at is tackling. And so it's been really good for a guy like him to, buy into how we're teaching it, to, see, and the good thing is like when we do drills and see Brian Massey tackling well, and then come out to a scrimmage setting and see it come to fruition, that's where you're like, okay, there's a lot of positives that are going on here, and we're being coachable and we're getting better in those areas. So, I think for sure, like anything, experience helps.
What did you see from the new guys that came in, especially the transfers that came in that weren't involved in spring? Corey, Cam on the line, Kobe at linebacker, and some of those secondary guys too.
Yeah, I just think they all elevate those rooms and continue to push those rooms where there's a strong 2 deep and in some spots 3 deep, which, as you guys know, you're only as good as the next guy up, right? And so, feel good about those depth in those positions and those guys elevating, because, as soon as you assume that you've won a job, you're going to lose a job, and like in the safeties room, we have 6, really pushing towards 7 guys right now that I feel comfortable that are going to play and be able to play a lot, and I've told them that, we're going to play a lot of guys. Those guys are all on teams. Most of them are on 2 teams, and so because of that, we when our offense is rolling, we're playing 75 to 85 snaps, so we got to be able to roll it's not how good's the first guy that rolls out there, it's their drop off between the first and the second, and that's what I'm pleased at. A lot of position, I really don't feel like there is much drop off. Maybe there's some drop off as far as like a guy that's like Chris Megan has had a game experience over maybe Smoke or Jahari or whoever that next guy is, but as far as talent, I feel like we're in a pretty good place. So,
Isaiah Wachovia, what did you see from him from last year where he was nicked up and all that stuff, and now to this player that is out there wearing 23?
Yeah, I think just the biggest thing with Zay is his confidence right now. And, when everything that went on last year, we don't, whether it was injury, whatever all the situation was, his decision to come back and to persevere, and a lot of guys in that situation would have said, hey, I'm leaving, I'm going to go find somewhere else. Me and Isaiah have had a good relationship since we've been here, and so I'm proud of how he's responded. Worked really hard in the spring, was a ways behind those guys, but worked really hard over summer, and now you've seen it to a point where he'll end up starting for us at some point this year, I'm sure, and he's going to play as much as the guy in front of him week one. And now I've told him, hey, you get out there in the game and one guy plays another guy, well, then obviously, that can affect playing time. But I am confident in our, 2 deep and Bryce is a guy that I feel like can play multiple spots back there as well to be able to roll a lot of guys. And Isaiah's earned that right. And the thing that Isaiah had coming into camp, he told me, he said, Coach, I just want to add value to this team. So he was very humble with his approach of, he was realistic, he knew where he was, he knew what he had to work on, and he's a great example of a guy that, when things haven't gone your way, just keep your head down, keep working, stay humble through the process, and good things happen. And so, really proud of him. And obviously it was cool for today. We did not have very good practice on defense at all. I thought it was our sloppiest practice in at least the last 5 or 6, but the 2-minute drill, he ended with a pick to seal it, which was good for him to be able to make a play on the ball like that.
Coach Lashley on Saturday said he really felt like you guys had a pretty good, solid, starting 11 on both sides. The difficulty was going to be that second part of the 2 deep. I know you guys have met some since then. Do you really feel like that 11 is pretty well set for week 1, and how do you kind of try and figure out who that number 2 is?
Yeah, I think in most positions, it's the guys that have been repping out there, but then you have positions where there's going to be possibly 2 to 3 guys playing that position, and so that's a good problem to have. And like I said, you get an opportunity, and you can only do so much in practice. It's the technique and the fundamentals, but then when it's live bullets, who can execute and who can make plays and put it all together. So then you evaluate game to game based on performance. So I see us playing more than 22 guys though. Week 1 and further into the season, I think we'll have to.
Very basic question, but do you guys have specific team goals on defense, like, hey, top 25 scoring defense, X amount of sacks? You guys do that?
Mm-hmm. We do.
Yeah. And how confident are you in your guys' ability to get there this year?
We've evaluated those goals daily, so that's something. The goals that we have set in front of them. There's 3 things that are big for us that we're focusing to be top 25 on in the country, and so each day they get a breakdown of what we did in practice the previous day and how that would have added up. Because typically, in a typical practice, now we had scouts today, but in typical practice, you're getting an equivalent 1s and 2s to probably about the amount of snaps you get in a game. And so, there's 3 areas that we feel like are really big for us to be a top 25 defense, and so those are the things that we evaluate and talk to about daily.
Is Elijah Roberts a guy that, since he got here and where his body's taken him and all of that, that has kind of changed the way you can play that group of down linemen, or just from him playing a little bit more out on the edge and things like that?
Yeah, he's a guy that he's just got so much position flexibility. It's fun to have a guy like that on your team because he can play end on 1st and 2nd down. He can move to 3 technique on 3rd down. If we have to play a Big 12 personnel team, he can move to Sam backer. Like that's a guy that's got a lot of upside. So now mentally it becomes a lot on him, because he's essentially learning 3 positions. But you got a guy with that skill set. You got to find a way to make him a key cog to what you're doing. And so yeah, he's a huge part of what we're doing for sure.
With that positional flexibility, I think of like a guy like Micah Parsons, who obviously is a freak athlete, but what's required to have that positional flexibility?
He's just really athletic for his size. I mean, a guy that's, I don't know what he weighs right now in the camp, somewhere around 270, 270. I mean, he's 275. To be able to run like he does, to be able to play, obviously he's not a 3 technique on early downs. He could probably do it if we needed him to, but not, he's not a guy you want to put in there on bump combos and those type of things. But he can do it on 3rd down when it's pass rush mode, because he's an athletic 3. But then having the ability where he's so athletic as an edge to move him on the line as like a Sam backer and 3-4 stuff. That's a different cat out there now. So you get those Y wing formations, and you got 2 tight ends out there, and you put Elijah over there in that crease, like that crease is gone. You know what I mean? Like you're going to have to bring offensive extra tackles in the game to try to create those surfaces now, because there's not very many tight ends that we'll see in this league that can handle him as a 9 technique or a 9 jam 7. He's just too big. And so I think that's the position flexibility that he has, is just the athletic ability with being a physical football player.
There's obviously a benefit of being able to play your base defense a lot because you trust the guys to get the job done. There's also a lot of fun in being able to change it up. Do you qualify one as better than the other, and how much flexibility do you think this defense will have to kind of switch between those 2?
Yeah, we want to be pretty fundamentally sound on early downs, and like in our scrimmages, we haven't done hardly anything on early downs. It's been, You know, we had a team run play action pass period where we lined up in the same call for 20 plays the other day. Like literally, I just told them, don't look at the sideline. We're running because we want them to have the foundational learning that we're good enough that we don't necessarily have to do much else. But to your point, then you know you want to make sure that they have the knowledge of everything. So when you do want to run some other stuff in games, whether it's as a run stunt, you know, a change up. Like today, we worked a lot of kind of more of our maybe more exotic stuff that's a little bit newer, and so it wasn't very clean. We had some bust, but we hadn't worked it in a while, other than you know maybe in some third down situations, and so we got out there and you know we wanted to put it on tape so we could coach off of it, and you know I felt like we'd had a pretty clean scrimmage in the last game as far as lining up in base calls, and our execution was a lot better, I should say, from our first scrimmage. So, but at the end of the day, you know we're going to start with the foundation and. You know, if we think that our players are a better matchup than what we're going against, then we can be base and simple and let the guys go play fast. So I don't think that aspect has changed much.
With as much talent as you guys assembled this offseason, are there any discussions of really trying to keep the team, like kind of Jalen Knighton said earlier, just day by day, not focusing on the big picture of, hey, we might be playing well, or here's what's ahead of us? How hard is that to kind of navigate?
I don't think it is, because you know it's like we told the guys. I mean, we're coming off a 7-6 year. It's not like, you know, we haven't done anything. That's where we are right now. We haven't won any games. Louisiana Tech is a good football team, and we're going to play them in 2 weeks, and they're going to have a game on us. So I think our guys fully understand that, and we'll take it one game at a time, and they know that's the process, and that's all we're focusing on. There's no, you know, you guys can talk about the other stuff. We gotta be 1-0, you know, and we're you know, today wasn't a 1-0 practice. Coach was right when he told them that we got to put better practices together. It was, you know, I don't know if it was the first practice after day one of school. Those generally, as a coach, are your least favorite days of the year. I don't know if it was the heat, but we didn't come out and have a very clean practice, and so it's on our staff to get our guys back and focused, come out and have a good Wednesday, and you know finish up the week right as we continue to prepare for week one.
I know he's not on your side of the ball, but how excited are you to watch Preston be able to get the chance to actually start after waiting and developing?
Yeah, I think Preston, you know, he spoke in front of the team, had an opportunity to speak in front of the team. I don't think he could have said it any better the other night, and I think he's a really good leader. I think he understands what he's got around him, which is some good weapons, and I'm really excited for him to be able to grow in his role and see that maturation process, because it's not easy to wait. But I also think, you know, Preston was humble enough to understand what he had with Tanner in front of him, and that was a really experienced quarterback that I wasn't in that meeting room, but I think Preston probably learned a lot from Tanner too. And so, but yeah, I think, you know, we're all excited to see him week one, and you know, we got to practice against this offense every day, and they do a great job. So I'm excited to see him get to go against somebody else.
And then just, do we get to know the 3 things you're trying to be top 25 in, or is that staying in the room right now?
Just staying in the room right now.